Now you might be interested to know how this works, this CW capacitive touch keyer. Okay, let me try to explain this. So in the previous software, Sketch, we already used two inputs for the Arduino. So let's say this is the Arduino. And it has some inputs. One is the A1 input and another one is the D3 input. So A1 is used for the DIT and D3 is used for the DA. So this is the DIT and this is for DA. Okay, what we are doing now in this new version, we're going to add an extra output. We're going to use D2 for it. It's the only one that is still free. It's an output, and this output we connect it via two resistors. So one here and another one here to the DIT and the DA inputs. And the resistors are both 470k each. So what we will do now in the sketch, the sketch will send, it will, normally the D2 output will be high, and via the resistors the inputs A1 and D3 will also be high. So high, it's like 5 volts. So let me make a small drawing here. Okay, so 5 volts, it's a high. So initially the A1 and the D3 inputs will be high. Okay, and then at some point the D2 input will go low. So the Arduino will send a low to the D2 output. And then this 0 volts will go via those resistors to both the DIT and the DA inputs. So after a very short period of time, the A1 and D3 inputs will also become low, 0 volts. But it will not go down to 0 immediately. It will take some time, like this. And this is due to there is some internal capacitance here, and the resistors are quite high, so it'll take a little bit of time for the voltage to drop to 0 volts at the inputs. So this time will be only a few microseconds. So this time maybe about 3 microseconds. Now if we connect some touch pads there to the DIT and to the DA inputs, so if we don't touch them, the the voltage will drop quite quickly within a few microseconds to 0 volts. However, if we touch one of them, then the extra capacitance that will then be added to the input will cause the voltage to drop much slower to 0 volts. So instead of dropping down to within a few microseconds, it will take much longer, maybe something like this. And perhaps it might take, well, this is not correct scale, but it might take up to 50 microseconds or so. So what we can do is first send a zero, a low to the output, and then some period of time later, maybe let's say 10 microseconds later, we check the inputs and check whether they are already low or still high. When they're, so for example at this point, so when we measure at this point whether the input is already down to 0, already low, or still high, we know whether the touch pad was touched or not. When it's already low, we know it wasn't touched. If it is still high, we know it's touched. So with this principle, we can detect whether or not the touch pad was touched. And also we can play a little bit with this point, where exactly, after how much time we are going to check this voltage. So we could check it here, we could check it here, we could check it here. If we check it here, then we're obviously too early. If we are here, we're too late. So we must be somewhere in between. And this point where exactly we're going to test the inputs for a low or a high is also controlling the sensitivity of the touch sensors. So with this principle we can detect whether or not the touch pads were touched or not, and then we use that information to generate a DIT or a DA from the keyer in the usual way.